Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Audra Mitchell, head of the Massy Learning Institute, MLI for short, and your host for today's session. According to Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn, no matter how brilliant your mind or strategy, if you're playing a solo game, you'll always lose out to a team. And when I read the article in which Mr. Hoffman's comment was quoted, I immediately saw the link between his comment and today's topic entitled, How to Build a Personal Leadership Brand that Inspires High-Performing Teams. Our session today will examine the importance and challenge faced by organizations and individuals to ensure that the personal proficiency of our current and future leaders is strengthened, thereby enabling them to create a distinct and powerful personal leadership brand, which would enable the emergence of consistently high-performing teams under their leadership. Really critical in this age of disruption. Now, just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A box, and at the end of the presentation, we will address as many of your questions as time permits. If someone posts a question that is similar to what you wanted to ask, just click the thumbs up button next to that question, as this will assist us with our moderating. Please note, a recording of today's session will be made available to you on MLI's YouTube channel and also via the Massy Connect app. If you have not downloaded the app as yet, we encourage you to do so. So now, without further ado, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome and introduce our presenter, Mr. Ian Chinapoo. Ian is the Executive Director, Executive Vice President, and Group Chief Financial Officer and Chairman of the Massy Finance GFC within Massy Group. His career spans over 25 years in banking and finance in the Caribbean and Central American region. He joined the Massy Group as an Executive Director on June the 1st, 2018, and sits on several subsidiary boards as well. Previously, Ian held executive responsibility for strategic leadership, growth and management of the Trinidad and Tobago Unit Trust Corporation and several of its subsidiaries. He is also an adjunct faculty at the Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business since 1995, primarily in the field of finance, accounting, and strategy. And let me also add, he's also a facilitator with MLI. We're pleased to announce that as well. Mr. Chinapoo continues to foster a culture of leadership through the continuous development, communication, and training of his direct team and extended teams as chairman of Massy Finance GFC. Ian, welcome. It is a pleasure having you here today.
Oh, thank you, Audra, and thank you, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm hoping that by a thumbs up, I'm being heard. The audio is good. Wonderful. So again, thank you for the MLI team. I am so happy to be here and to contribute to the webinar series, the Level Up series. So today, I want to talk to each and every one of you because you saw in the title page here, I have personal and team leaders. I think we all know what a team leader is, you know, somebody who has members of staff and people who report to them. But what is a personal leader? Because my argument is that every single one of us is and can be a leader, at least of one person, yourself. So personal leaders is everybody who is willing to contribute. And that's what that's the audience I want to speak to today. Of course, oftentimes the best personal leaders become team leaders. And that's what I hope for all of you. So what is our reality today? As Audra said, we are in the age of disruption. So we all know that successful organizations must be adept at attracting, developing, and retaining talent with all different types of diverse skill sets and who are open to new perspectives. We only need to look to the last year and a half to see how these perspectives need to be adaptable to the current environment. So what is the measure of success or failure? It's not in the design of organizational structures and who's paying the most, etc. but really it's in our ability to articulate a higher purpose. Yeah. So I think most of us know Steve Jobs, and I'm a big fan of his. If you've been to any of my programs, you'll see some quotes. But he has said something, and this is right when he was in the process of developing the iPhone and iPod and all these things. And Audra alluded to it. He said, great things in business are never done by one person. They're done by a team of people. And this applies to more than just business, but of course, this was his quote. It applies to everything in life. So leaders must lead, and they must lead courageously. When leaders lead well, teams deliver. So one of my also favorite management thinkers, Peter Senge, said, the only sustainable competitive advantage is an organization's ability to learn faster than the competition. So we have to ask ourselves, are we contributing to building a learning organization? And the fact that Massy has a learning institute is one big competitive advantage that we have. Next slide. Let's talk about leadership for a minute. And what is our role as a leader? We must have that clear sense of shared values and a shared mission, because leaders must have that way forward, that point in the future that we're aiming towards. We must clearly communicate that shared mission and purpose, because you can't just know it. You have to be able to communicate it and therefore inspire people to dedicate their talents to achieving that mission and that goal. So the art of leadership is no longer just to plan and direct and tell people what to do, but it must be to inspire and to empower faith and belief. Yeah. So why is leadership so important? I want to start with Thomas Friedman, and he says, and back to the age of disruption a little bit. In today's world, whatever can be done will be done. The only question is, will it be done by you or to you? And organizations and teams and people who are leaders, it's done by them. It's not done to them. So it's a very powerful statement for context. So one more reality check. Did you know that every single day, by your words and your actions, you are intentionally, and for most people, unintentionally, influencing the way that the people around you, your team, your bosses, your peers, how they perceive you and your abilities and capabilities. Every single day, whether you're looking or you're not looking, you are influencing how people perceive you. Okay? So, in that sense, are you being perceived as a manager or as a leader? And I'll pause here for a second, because most organizations historically, they will look at someone's academic qualifications. They would look at their industry experience, how long they've been doing something, and whether they are good at that thing. And they will, if all those boxes are checked, they will promote them to manager. So organizations, select the managers based on these criteria. What the best organizations or the market leading organizations are actually also factoring in, yes, academic qualifications, experience is important, how well you are, how good you are at something. But the difference between top organizations selecting managers and leaders is whether they choose people who can inspire and influence and empower others. And that to me is the difference between a manager and a leader. Next slide. So let's do another reality check. Many managers who are not perceived as leaders by the people around them fail to do so because they are not actually self-aware. They're not aware or even understand, even clear on how they are managing their personal brand. And that's what our key topic is today. All right, next slide. I like this cartoon a lot. I'm gonna give you a minute to soak it in. So let's look at the manager and let's look at the characteristics of a leader. I won't go through all of them, and I know you'll see this online. So managers tend to want to make rules, ask you when something is due, instruct you on how best you should do it. Tend to want to avoid risk because, CYA, right? We delegate things, we enforce things, we like to, we do give people praise and so on, but when they do things the way we want them to do it, as distinct from someone who is perceived as a leader shapes the culture, sets the tone, asks you why you do something and why you did it that way, because they believe that they can learn from everyone, right? They sometimes take risks because you're not going to learn something or get better at something unless you give people a chance to take risks. They don't avoid conflict. They use conflict. Okay, how do we get better because of a difference in a point of view? And how does one empower others instead of disempower them by telling them, do it my way only? And these are some key differences, because these people may have the exact same title, but one is my manager and the other one is my leader when people talk about them. Okay? So how can we evolve? And it's okay. Managers are how we all start out. Okay? So the challenge, what is our goal here? How do we strengthen that personal proficiency of current and the people who will be our future leaders of our high-performing teams? And we have to do that through distinctive individual actions and standards. It's not going to happen by accident. It's not going to happen because you met target last year. This is a deliberate effort to build up personal proficiency in how you become and transition and evolve to be a leader of a high-performance team. So today's topic is only one step of the journey. There are actually 11 steps. But of course, we have limited time. And the number one step, so therefore probably the most important, is to develop that personal brand. So I want to share with you the steps that I have learned. And of course, these are by no means exclusive. So I would love you to interact on it, give feedback, and build upon them. So what is personal proficiency as a leader? And that's something that's an outcome. You have to work at this. This is work. So we actually have to do some self-assessment, self-awareness, and say, okay, what are my personal characteristics? Am I authentic? Am I courageous? Am I willing to stand up? Of course, you can't be a leader unless you're able to stand up for your point of view. There are many managers who don't do that, but leaders do. You must, of course, educate yourself, not just on how to do the technical job you have in front of you, but leadership is a body of knowledge. Okay, there's actually a course I teach at the university on strategic leadership, just leadership, not leadership in some other field, but just leadership as a topic. And also leaders are known to be lifelong learners, and they're always refreshing and improving their skill sets. Leaders are also people who are able to demonstrate that values rise above convenient circumstance. Their values do not change when times get tough. Okay? They're not trying to CYA anything. They're willing and able to be courageous and speak their mind when it's right. So, when effectively combined, all these things feed into what a personal brand that leaders can develop. And leaders can then access their full ability to not just do a good job in front of them, but to inspire, excite, and engage others, right? To instill in them a desire to follow towards that ultimate mission. Remember, we said leaders must have that ultimate mission. So people are not going to follow you because they're doing a job and give of their best. They need to be inspired. We need to excite people and we need to engage them. So learning how to use and strengthen those personal attributes into an authentic personal brand is essential for improving performance and one's perception as a leader versus just a manager. Always, my bosses in the past told me, just give people 3 steps. There may be a few more, but start with these 3 and do what works for you. The first thing I would say, and the most important, is to develop your personal leadership point of view. So before you have a brand, you need to know what is your leadership point of view, because it won't be authentic unless you do that self-introspection. So what is your personal leadership point of view? And these are my quotes, so don't don't any typos and so on. It's all me. My personal leadership point of view, so I'm asking, this is as if you were reading it, is my opinion on what it takes to succeed and what it takes to lead others. It becomes the basis for leaders like me to present a dynamic and compelling story to others. My personal leadership point of view comes from my previous experiences as well as my hopes for the future. It is my statement of what I believe as a leader, or if it's you saying it, what you believe as a leader. Okay? So let me share with you a little bit more about this personal point of view. So where will your personal leadership point of view come from? When you're thinking about this, think about the people that you respect, your heroes and your mentors, and those people who lead others. It could be anybody from Nelson Mandela. For me, it's somebody who's passed away now, but I call him the late, great Michael Mansour. He was the executive chairman of CIBC First Caribbean, where I worked for 10 years, and real gentleman, and yet still a real achiever as a leader. So these are some of my mentors. My personal or core values. Who am I? What do I stand for? Okay? What can I tolerate? What can I get behind? These things this is very, very important for people to believe that you're authentic. You have to bring this point of view from who you are, not by pretending to be somebody else. So I just remembered something I want to share. I always tell people when I make a tough decision, especially when it comes to people and their performance and hiring and firing and so on, I pretend that my two daughters are in the room watching what I do. So how I treat that person, how I deal with that situation, I pretend that my daughters are there with me, and what would I want them to see when I handle the situation? That's a reflection of my personal, core values. You must also be passionate. You can't inspire and excite people if you are not inspired or excited yourself. So your life's purpose, and do things that excite you. My journey, for example, is one of finance. People ask me, you've been a banker, you've been an asset manager, you've been in corporate finance, you've been teaching for 25 years. Make up your mind. What do you want to do? I said, all of that is the same thing. This is just me on my journey in pursuing finance as my professional first and only love. So, the subjects I chose in secondary school, all the way to the job I'm doing now, is about becoming that complete version of a finance professional. Not just a retail banker or a commercial banker or investment banker or an asset manager, or company treasurer. It's all of those things. And that's what I'm sharing as what excites me. My past experiences. I have been known as a person who doesn't listen too well. So a lot of my personal development work has been on how do I get better at this to close that gap. And of course, my personal strengths and my identity. Who am I and what am I good at? And I always like to tell people what I'm not good at so that they know, okay, I manage expectations. A lot of people think that leaders must be perfect. No one expects their leaders to be perfect, but you expect them to be honest. You expect them to be knowledgeable. You expect them to listen to you. And these are the things that you have to work on as your personal strength and identity. I just shared all of these words because all of these words, they're not comprehensive. They're probably more words, but they're often the words used to describe leaders. We don't have time to do this exercise, but I usually would do this exercise with my colleagues and say, listen, circle the 5 things that you want to be known for. Just 5. And from that, we can build or start to build our personal point of view. The words that are colored in blue, I think you can see them in blue. These are the words that of 500 companies that were surveyed, probably more by now, but this was some years ago. These were the most common words chosen. So I just highlighted them just to let you know what many leaders in top organizations, Fortune 500 companies, choose as what they have. But it doesn't have to be this. And as I said, you can write another word on here that describes you. But I tend to, and we have defined each of these words. So I don't know, Audrey, if MLI, we can share the definitions of these words with you. But I start here to do the exercise. So I'm going to give you on the next slide a takeaway exercise. So in about 50 to 100 words, go home tonight, right? When you get a chance to look at these words and write your personal leadership point of view statement based on the 5 or 6 words that you've circled. To make it easy for now, I'm going to share mine. Next slide. So I chose, well, it's supposed to be 5, but I, put 6. So this is my own personal leadership point of view statement. As a leader, I hold myself accountable for my decisions and actions. The highlighted versions are the keywords I chose. I ensure that those who interact with me are empowered to contribute and empower others themselves, gaining inspiration and motivation to pursue their dreams. I seek to bring my passionate enthusiasm to all my works, communicating openly and honestly, earning the trust and confidence of those who are in my care. I will give of my best, bringing my experience and expertise to bear on all situations, demonstrating that innovative thinking can bring solutions to all challenges. So that's an example of a person's leadership point of view. It happens to be mine. And these were the words that I chose that best describe what I want to project as a leader. So that was step 1. Come up with your personal leadership point of view. We're on to step 2 now. So take deliberate actions to communicate and live your personal point of view. It makes no sense coming up with it if people can't see it. Okay? So let me give you some examples. I'm using myself as the example here. So 3 of my words were accountable, empower, and innovative, right? So these are some of the things that I try to do to demonstrate these things and reinforce these things, because telling people I'm accountable will be totally, not relevant if you don't act that way. So you now need to be deliberate in acting that way. Not saying I'm accountable because I say I am. So I park the buses. I do not drive a bus over anybody. Always be the first as a leader to take responsibility for anything that happens with you or your team. Okay? So the buck stops with me. In fact, I think my bosses stop asking me now, so who made that mistake? I did. This is what we deal with that. So the buses are parked. Nobody gets put under a bus in my team. Empowering. I always say to my team members, I trust you to get this done for us. Let me know how I can help you. And then follow through by making any request for such help a high priority. Even if you may not perceive it for yourself, it's a high priority for somebody else, and therefore it's a high priority for you. So my colleagues at Massy Finance GFC will know this one well. Innovative. Ask the team and myself, is there a better way we can do this? If the team answers you, then do it. Okay? So you action things when you ask that question. Don't just ask the question and leave it at that. So those are 3 deliberate actions you can take to reinforce. And of course, you should have a deliberate action for each one of your personal point of views characteristics. Step 3, continuously challenge your actions and empower other people to challenge you. So if you say you're going to do something, empower people to challenge you and challenge your leadership point of view in all situations. So I'm going to give a couple examples of how I personally do this. So for myself, I decided I'm going to drop the silent treatment, because we all know, some people will say there are 3 types of feedback: positive feedback, negative feedback or critical feedback, or no feedback. I said, you know what? I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to say no negative feedback, only constructive feedback. And I'm only going to give 2 types of feedback: positive and constructive. I'm not gonna not give somebody feedback. That's the worst type of situation to be in, because the person doesn't know whether they've done well or whether they can improve. So I must give either positive or constructive feedback. Avoiding conflict, avoiding challenging situations, and giving persons no feedback is no longer a personal option for me as a leader. So that's one thing I've done for myself. I've dropped giving no feedback. The second thing I've done to my teams, to my colleagues, anybody who works with me, now I did not put my safe word here. So this is safe word is not the safe word, but I use a safe word. Some of you on the line would know it. So, please don't out me to the whole group because it's a very powerful word for me. So I gave my colleagues, all my colleagues, in almost the first meetings I had with each of the groups, permission to use a particular word with me in the event they feel like I was talking too much and not listening to them. And I did that because I knew I had this problem with listening. This word would force me to stop talking and to listen. It's very powerful because I actually cannot speak once that word has been used, and until they use it once more to release me to respond. So at my previous place of work, the word was well known, and it was like an 8-story building. And many times I would go in the elevator, and whether it was our tea lady or the courier, they would use the word and say they'd like to have a silent elevator ride up to the 8th floor. And I could, because they just knew it. It was so powerful, I couldn't speak during that time. I just had to listen to whatever they had to say. So that's an example of giving permission. And when you do this, you have to make sure it's real. Is he really giving me permission? Can I really say anything to him and he can't talk? Yes. So you actually have to live that value. And it has been very trying for me because somebody could be telling you what you consider to be utter nonsense and you can't respond. You have to take it because you trust the people enough that they won't waste that opportunity to make you listen. So guys, those were the 3 steps in helping build that personal brand. Have that personal leadership point of view that's unique to you and powerful. Make sure that you live those values by deliberate actions that involve other people and communicating that openly and honestly. And then reinforce it. Show people and empower people to call you out when you are not living your leadership brand point of view. These are the ways that you will build a very strong personal leadership brand, and it will help you to lead people and inspire people and excite them and engage them. You won't have to ask people why you're not listening, why you're not following me. You'll actually be much more in the space of helping people develop themselves because they'll be coming to you for that support and guidance. And that's when you know you're a leader. So organizations appoint managers. People choose their leaders. How do you become somebody who is chosen? Unless you are aware and actively managing your own personal brand, they won't be able to choose you. So guys, thank you very much. I'm going to end with a quote. The last thing I'm going to say is by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he says, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." And I'm asking you to find that leader within. Thank you much. I'll hand you over to Audra.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. For sharing such powerful nuggets with us. And for your use of personal examples to really reinforce it, So it wasn't just to share the nuggets, but really showing us how you apply it. So once again, thank you. So at this point, I'm going to hand you over and place you in the capable hands of Miss Rennie Modest, who will moderate our Q&A section. Rennie?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Audra, and thank you so much, Ian. So we have here just a few comments that I'd like to mention before we go on to our questions. We have Youthra with a comment. "I don't have a question per se, but I did just want to express my gratitude and appreciation to our leaders within the group who consistently take the time to share their experiences, and of course to MLA for facilitating these sessions. I enjoy each and every webinar tremendously, and I learn something new each time." So we just want to say thank you, Youthra, for your lovely comment. Another comment from an anonymous person: "I like asking my team to tell me if they think I could have done a task differently. It is important to me to learn their views because in that view may exist an innovative idea that I can use to help me do the same task better." And lastly, from Vera, I like the use of the safe word. "I will be adding this for myself and team." All right, so our first question dropping in: "What advice would you give to someone whose leader is not displaying a leadership brand?
Thanks. That's a very, very common question. It may be that that person is not aware that they even have a brand. They just see themselves as a manager, and I tell people to do because I'm being held accountable. And it could very well be that that person hasn't been themselves exposed to good leadership, and therefore, as we all know, people reflect what they know. I think the first thing I would do is tell them, come look at this YouTube video from MLI. But no, honestly, many people want to be better. What I would do is ask that person if we could meet in person, and many people may not be aware of this, but a performance meeting actually should go both ways. It should be the senior letting the employee know about how they're performing, but also the employee letting the senior know how they're performing. So if that doesn't happen, an option is to ask them to talk with you one-on-one, let them know it's a sensitive topic and you just want to reach out to them. And the first thing I would make sure and do is let them know you may not be aware of this, but this is how I perceive you. And, I'm taking a chance by sharing this with you. I believe you can be so much better, and I'm just letting you know how or what behaviors I will respond to. So I like to let people know how to love me. This is how I like to be loved, or how I like to be treated. So if people are aware of that and they still ignore it, well, there's a different issue. And that's where you might suggest, and I do this in my team, I offer everybody a chance to have a one-up review where you can meet with the person who is above your boss. So there's also a space that, and you don't have to have me there, you can go straight to that person. So give that person the opportunity in a safe environment, not in public, not in front of anybody else, and just say, listen, I think that our relationship could be a lot better. And don't speak for anyone else. Don't speak for other members. So and so in the team say that you could do. No. Speak for yourself, because that is the only way the person will give it credibility. Now, I'm not saying it's fail safe, but it's the best place to start.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ian. Our next question is from Keisha. Was there one pivotal moment in particular in your life that helped to shape your personal leadership style?
Yes. Guys, in my early years, I spent most of my time as an investment banker. And that's one of the professions that is really not known for things such as emotional intelligence and caring and all of that. So I got very much into a mode of do as I say, this is the way to do it, and you'll be successful, and you should be grateful that I'm spending the time to help you do this. That was Ian, 1995, 2000 to 2000. And I had a team member. The person is now the general manager of a large local bank's corporate business. Brilliant guy, but very, very quiet guy. And we were working on a very big transaction. It was Trinidad Cement Limited's acquisition of Carib Cement. And he did a credit write-up and made a huge mistake. I reviewed it, did not pick up the mistake. I sent it forward. At that time, I was at Citigroup, and it went up to a level 1 credit officer, which is like 3 steps below the emperor, And the person picked it up, and he called my boss at the time and basically said to fire all these people. And I got called into a meeting, and my whole instinct was to blame the guy who made the mistake. And at that point, I realized that the whole team was going to get blamed for something. And I had just had my first daughter, and I said, what would happen if my daughter was in this room? You were the one who hired the guy. You trained him. He made a mistake. You reviewed it. You didn't pick it up. What I did, I said, this guy's name was Armando Wilfried. I said, tell Armando this was entirely my fault. I have never felt so free, and so powerful. And at that moment, I realized that I could be a leader and not just seek my own interest. And I'll tell you, in fact, members of that team still work with me today. And they've never forgotten that I stood up for them. And that was the moment that I realized I could just be a leader and not just a personal performer. And for me, that was the big moment.
All right, great. This comment from another anonymous person comes right in. It fits nicely right here. I appreciate how authentic the delivery of this presentation was. Very relevant and actionable steps that leaders can take to do better and be better. Action steps are key to reinforcing who we say we are as leaders and demonstrating how we live our core values. Seeing is believing. This presentation was simply powerful. Thank you, Ian, for sharing your experience and knowledge. Moving on to our next question then. How can I change my brand now that I am more aware of myself and would like to be better?
Such a wonderful question. And that's really, in fact, that's the whole purpose of this presentation entirely. You've captured it in that one question. As I said, I was the worst. And just make that deliberate first step to be aware. That first point about just being aware. So you've already started to change your brand just by asking that question. So what you can do is reflect on the most common things that you say or do when interacting with team members and reflect on how that could be perceived. Write that down. Then ask people to do a performance review of the key people around you who you work with. And in that, when they come to the meeting, tell them this is not a performance review on you. This is a performance review on me. And you ask them, what are the things that I have done that you are happy with, and what are the things as a leader that you think you're not happy with, and why? And then go away and do the personal point of view exercise. Because what I'm asking you to do there is to have other people validate your strengths as a leader and your weaknesses. So when you choose those words, choose the strengths that you want to strengthen further and be known for, and then identify areas of weakness and choose the opposite activity as your characteristic, and then devise deliberate actions for you to do to counter that position. So you never get a second chance to make a first impression, but it doesn't mean you should stop trying. It just takes longer. So people mightn't believe you at first, but I guarantee you, after the 10th time of doing something differently, people will start to believe that you're already changing, and people can change. So give people a chance to help you change, and they will help you. Being afraid to take criticism and getting defensive is your worst enemy in this, and you have to overcome that. And just recognize that you are not bigger than the team. The team needs a certain type of leader, and you need to be that leader. But you need to do so in a way that fits your personal beliefs, your experiences, your leadership point of view. So work with your team members, and you will start seeing that change. The beauty of it is, once you start seeing that change, others will start seeing it too and become your ambassadors. So there are many, I can't tell you how many times in my career I've gotten a call on a job application from someone, and I say, you know, you're already overqualified for this. Why are you doing it? Because I spoke to so-and-so and I want to work for you. So this is just a job that's open in your shop and I am applying for it. So that has happened so many times for me. And that's because people have become my ambassadors, and you know, your brand will carry, is what I'm saying, once you get it right. So, but the first thing you have to do is kind of humble yourself to listen and then work on what you hear. Okay?
Excellent. I love that response. All right, on to our next one. Do you have recommendations for leadership programs if someone wants to pursue the leadership path?
You know, there are a few good ones, and I know MLI is going to be developing and working on several different modules. Right now, I'm in a program called the Delphi Experience. Audra's in it with me. And that's a really deep one. There's also the JW Proctor, yeah, I think it's there are a few good ones. Yeah, but I won't sit down and advocate any one in particular per se. You should do your research and kind of choose the ones where what you need to work on. Some leaders are naturally charismatic already, and you just need to refine your delivery. Others are really good people, really good, knowledgeable people, but they don't have that natural ability to communicate. They tend to be introverted, and you may need to. And a lot of people don't know this, but I am introverted. I actually started teaching as a way to build my confidence in front of people, and to help me to not be afraid in front of a group of people. So you find things that, or find programs that kind of work with what your particular needs are. But of course, I would always advocate the programs that MLI has and the programs that Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business has. But there are many different programs out there, and I don't profess to know them all. But I can speak to the few that I've been in. And I actually read a lot of books. And there are a couple books that I can probably share with Audrey, and they can put it up. That would help you to kind of start understanding who you are as a leader first, and then kind of choose a program to look at in particular. Okay, there are lots of them.
All right, great, thank you. Ian, I appreciate your honesty regarding your weakness as a listener. It shows your maturity as a person and your ability to perform introspection. How do you encourage self-reflection in managers?
I simply ask them, are you aware of how others perceive you? And in our expectations of a Massy leader, we get to rate ourselves, and then other people's rate us. Other people rate us. Sorry. And oftentimes, to this day, I still see differences in how I see myself to how others perceive me. So it's that ability to acknowledge that people will see me differently. I have to own those differences and ask myself, if they are not in a positive light, what have I done or did not do to encourage those impressions? And be honest with yourself. That's the first thing I would say. Be really honest with yourself and be courageous. I know people who would rather have physical injury than feel that they've been insulted or criticized. And leaders are people who can get over that. They have to be able to, you are not perfect. No one is perfect. To the last day before you retire or leave as a leader, you will still have an area to improve. What you can do is make sure that those gaps are smaller and smaller as the years go by. Don't expect overnight improvement. What I can say though, is that if you're honest with yourself, you will significantly improve the way other people see you, and the challenges that they have are going to be so much smaller, and you're going to be what I call tried and tested. And if you're tested and you react in a positive light and make changes, people see you doing that, they're going to give you a lot of slack, they're going to give you help, and they're going to be honest with you. The worst leaders are people who are totally unaware that the people around them are not supporting them, they hate them. I remember somebody telling me, every time I have a meeting, I can't find the staff. I say, what do you mean you can't find the staff? And one day I bounced into the corner room, a lunchroom or something, and the whole staff was there. They were meeting to discuss how not to do all the things I just asked them to do. And in the meeting with me, everybody was saying, yes, good, nice. But nothing was ever getting done. By the way, this was a minister of government telling me this. So at the end of the day, you may not even know when people are not supporting you because they wouldn't let you know. And that's the biggest gap a leader has. You are so at risk. They say the bigger you are, the harder you fall. If the people around you don't trust you and you can't trust them. So build with that trust and be honest.
Thank you so much, Ian. On to our next question, which is quite similar. How can you do a two-way communication with your leader and them not take it personally, as they usually do take it personally?
They do, and they do because they're human. And I have been in situations where I'm getting the feedback and I'm teaching this and I'm talking about this and I still take it personal. What you have to help them. You have to help them. And that's why I say start in a safe environment, as safe as you can make it. Let them know it's a sensitive topic coming in, so it's no blindsiding. Tell them that you really are sharing this in the hope that they think about it. You're not asking for an immediate response. You just want them to think about it and give them the permission to come back to you and seek clarification. Because if you're saying something they don't want to hear, it's going to be either a reaction where they attack or they go silent. So understand in advance that those are the things and say, listen, I know you may feel I'm saying this, it's like a tough love conversation. I'm saying this because I want you to know. Imagine if I just kept this to myself and discussed it behind your back with others. No, I'm coming to you because I care about you and I want you to know how I feel. Now, if you think I am wrong, and give them the opportunity to say, well, and you know, the reason they might give you for why they do something, it may have nothing to do with you, or it could be something from their personal life, you know? And, you know, you don't want to get into therapy in this, but you just want to give them the opportunity to listen, and you understand that, yes, they may very well take it personally. But unless they take it personally, they don't want to change anyway. So you can't have it both ways. So give them the opportunity in the safest space as possible. Let them know in advance that it is a sensitive topic, so they're not blindsided totally. And then in the meeting, give them a chance to come back to you after. Don't have to respond to me now on, because leaders and managers tend to feel like they can't look weak in front of you. They can't look vulnerable in front of you, you know? So you have to help them be a better leader. Listen, I tell people this all the time. Everybody I work with is better than me in at least one and many times more than one thing. Let them know that, because they will help you be better yourself, right?
Thanks so much, Ian. We have another question here from Yuthra. How do you keep yourself motivated to continue along your journey of staying true to your personal brand, especially at times when you feel as though your efforts to be a transformational leader are just not landing with your team members and your efforts are not being acknowledged or recognized?
It's hard. And that's why I say you kind of have to be courageous. There's a concept, I don't know if this is not a real concept, guys, this is just me. I call it self-combustion. I take praise and criticism, or let me put it this way, when people don't believe what I'm saying and they don't believe it's the right thing, as equal motivators. I believe that I am equally motivated to help somebody see my point of view as when they praise me for my point of view. So it's a choice, you know, it's a choice I made a long time ago. So, you know, there have been things that are only now coming to fruition that I had been advocating for some time. And one of the things is, if you believe in something and an idea, in a concept, do not give up. Choose your time, but be consistent. How do I stay motivated? I believe in a higher purpose. I love Massy, I believe in Massy. I also believe in myself and my family, but I believe that I am here to make a difference. And I am not a world-class, you know, musician that can bring peace playing the piano. I can't stand the sight of blood, so I can't save people's lives in a hospital. But what I believe I can do is help people manage their finances better. I can help organizations achieve things in terms of their finances in a way that, based on my experience, that can be distinctive. And I find comfort in that. I find joy in that. And I don't take no for an answer, so I can't get demotivated if you don't agree with me. I will come back again at the right time. And I also never tell people I told you so. All right, I may vent that way a little bit to my friends, but I wouldn't tell the person, you see what I told you about the group corporate treasury? I wouldn't go and say that. So there are things that might have taken 3 years to get done, but I believe in better late than never, you know? So have a belief in yourself, and that's where you will find the motivation. Know that you're coming from a good place, and people won't always see your value. You know, I think Audra, forgive my quotation in the Bible here, it say a prophet is never respected in his own land. Right, if I got it right. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful, Ian. Thank you. I will move to a comment we have here from Liliana before I go on to our last question for the morning. Thanks, Ian, for helping me to be a better leader for my team, for strengthening my opinion that an accountant can be more human than numerical. All right, on to our last question. How can we promote Know Your Leader similarly like how we promote Know Your Employee? What is a good method to prompt this?
You know, we're talking about it all morning. It's about that personal brand. Help them realize that, you know, you need to be aware of how you're perceived, and do you want to, if it's not done by you, it's going to be done to you. So if you don't actively kind of frame this personal leadership brand, other people are going to define it for you, and it may be just defined by your worst. People tend to remember your best actions, and even more so your worst actions. And what they should remember is your consistent actions. And that is, you know, I think hopefully things like what we're doing today will help leaders and managers across the group be aware that they need to manage that KWL, or KYL, know your leader, KYL, as well as, you know your employee or know your customer. And we as people with leaders, we need to be aware that our leaders are human and look for their actions and support them in those consistent actions, and don't judge them always for just when they're at their worst, you know, or when things are at their worst. And if you so do, you will help them be more aware of their own leadership style and leadership brand. So encourage people and say, you know, I heard about this, I'm going to be working on my brand, my personal brand, and get them interested and say, you know, what is that you're working on? I mean, this is, and you know, bring them in through your example. So there are many different ways that you can bring people in. You know, so I would say give your leader a chance and show them what you know. Encourage them to be aware of themselves and aware of what is now what you know as your personal brand. Yeah, I think it's important. KYL, that's a new phrase you've just coined for me.
Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you. Over to you, Audra.
Great, thank you, Renee, and thanks again for your wonderful moderation of the Q&A. So, wow, Ian, you shared so much. This time went by so quickly. We're not certainly we're going to be bringing you back again, right? And I'm sure there'll be no argument from our attendees or any of us. So on behalf of all of us at MLI and the wider Massy group, thank you again for investing in all of us today through your sharing of your experiences, you know, the nuggets you shared, the homework we have, you know, and I'm certainly going to be doing the homework as well. So thank you again. And as I said earlier, we really look forward to having you back here again with us, in addition to the sessions you facilitate for us on our webinar Wednesday. So thank you to my amazing MLI team and our tech team, without whom none of this would be possible. Thank you to our attendees for your continued attendance and support, and your invaluable contributions to our sessions. Your attendance and support for webinars, we really appreciate it, and we want to invite you to continue to share your feedback as we partner with you in this journey. So please continue to look out for upcoming programs and webinars aimed at getting you future ready. Remember to keep safe and to keep leveling up. Bye, everybody. Until next time. See you soon.